My stepmom made me her servant and demanded $800 rent. But when I found the house deed, I discovered I was the owner and evicted them all. I'm 22 years old. I work at Starbucks while taking online classes, and until a few months ago, I was basically the servant in my own house. I mean, I thought it was my dad's house, but it turns out it wasn't. It turns out the house was mine this whole time and nobody had told me. And when I say I was the servant, I'm not exaggerating. I literally did everything in that house, while my stepmother and her 2 adult children did nothing, living life like I was their personal employee. But anyway, I need to tell this story from the beginning, because what happened after is something I still can't quite believe. It all started like 14 years ago, when I was 8. My mom died of breast cancer and my world basically disintegrated. I don't remember much from those first months after she died. Honestly, I think my brain erased most of it because it was too painful. My dad was devastated, completely lost, and my maternal grandparents, my mom's parents, moved in with us to help raise me. We were living in a small 2-bedroom house at that time, and my grandparents sold their house and bought this huge 4-bedroom house in a really nice neighborhood near Boston so we'd all have space. That house became my home, my refuge, and my grandparents were incredible to me during all those years. Things were okay. You know, as okay as they can be after losing your mom. My grandparents took me to school, helped me with homework, cooked my favorite meals. My dad worked a lot. I think it was his way of dealing with the pain, but when he was home, he was loving and present. Like 2 years went by like that, and then my dad met Christine at a business conference. She was 43 years old at that time. Well, now she's 46, but then 43. And my dad fell in love super fast. Too fast, looking back. They got married 6 months after meeting, and suddenly Christine and her 2 kids moved into our house. Connor was like 17 when they moved in, and Hannah was 13, 1 year older than me. At first, Christine was all sweet, like very kind. Bought me things, told me we were a family now. But things changed gradually, so slowly that I didn't realize it until it was too late. First it was like, "Hey Grace, could you wash the dishes tonight?" And then, "Grace, can you clean the bathroom?" And little by little, I became the person who did all the household chores, while Connor and Hannah did absolutely nothing. Connor spent all day playing video games in his room, and Hannah was obsessed with her social media and her appearance. My grandparents tried to intervene a couple times, but Christine was very manipulative with my dad, and he basically let her do whatever she wanted. And then in 2019, my grandparents died. First my grandfather from a heart attack, and then my grandmother like 6 months later, I think from grief more than anything. I was 15, and it was horrible, because they were my connection to my mom. You know what I mean? They were the only people in that house who truly loved me unconditionally. After they died, Christine got worse, much worse. She didn't have to pretend in front of them anymore, so she basically turned me into the house's Cinderella. I cooked, cleaned, did everyone's laundry, did the shopping, absolutely everything. And meanwhile, Connor, who was already 25 years old, kept living at home without working, saying he was going to be a famous content creator but basically just played Fortnite and Call of Duty all day. Hannah went to college but was always home asking me to iron her clothes or prepare food for her outings with friends. I finished high school working part-time at Starbucks and doing all the household chores. I wanted to go to college, but Christine convinced my dad it was better for me to take online classes and keep living at home to help with household things. My dad, who used to be so protective of me, just accepted everything Christine said. It was like she had bewitched him or something. I was trapped, making like $400 a week at Starbucks, no money to move out, and basically being my own family's servant. Then last year, when I was 21, Christine called me into the living room and told me that starting next month I'd have to pay rent. $800 a month plus my share of utilities, while still doing all the household chores. I looked at her like she was crazy and said, "Are you charging me rent in my dad's house while I do all the work here?" And she answered very seriously, "This is my house, Grace, and if you're going to live here as an adult, you have to contribute." Connor and Hannah don't pay because they're in transition, she explained. Connor with his content career and Hannah finishing college. I was so furious I couldn't even speak, but I also had no options. I didn't have enough money saved to move out and pay deposit and all that. That night I couldn't sleep. I was checking my email on my laptop, deleting spam and stuff, when I found an old email from 2019, like 3 months, after my grandmother died. It was from my grandparents' lawyer. And honestly, I didn't remember receiving it because I was so depressed at that time that I basically ignored everything for months. The email said something about important inheritance documents and that I needed to review some papers. It had a PDF attached, and when I opened it, I almost fell out of bed. It was the house deed. The house was in my grandparents' names, and they had put it completely in my name before they died. The house was mine. Legally mine. I was the owner of the property where we were living. I sat there for hours reading and rereading the document. I Googled if it was legal, if it was valid. I read the whole document like 10 times. My grandparents had done everything correctly, with notary and everything. They left me the house, not my dad, me. And suddenly everything made sense. That's why they had bought that big house. That's why they always told me this was my house and that nobody could ever take it from me. They had planned everything to protect me, and I didn't even know it. I didn't tell anyone for like 2 weeks. I kept doing my chores, going to work, acting normal, but inside I was like, waiting for the perfect moment. Christine kept pressuring me about the rent, saying that if I didn't pay the first month, I'd have to move out. And then one Sunday, we had one of those mandatory family dinners that Christine insisted on having to pretend we were a happy family. We were all sitting there, my dad, Christine, Connor, Hannah, and me, and Christine started again with the rent thing. She said, "Grace, the first of the month is in a week. I hope you have the money ready." Connor and Hannah laughed, like making fun of me, and my dad said nothing, just kept eating. And I took a deep breath and said, "The truth is, I'm not going to pay rent." Christine looked at me with that superiority face she always made and told me, "Then you're going to have to find another place to live." And I smiled, something that surprised me because normally she intimidated me, and said, "No, Christine, I don't think you understand. This is my house. I'm the legal owner of this property." My grandparents left it to me when they died. The silence that followed was like, epic. My dad dropped his fork. Christine's mouth fell open. Connor literally said, "What?" out loud. Hannah stopped checking her phone for the first time the entire dinner. And I pulled out my phone, opened the deed PDF, and put it in the middle of the table. I said, "Here's the deed. It's in my name. You can verify it if you want. The house is mine, and you've been living here for free for years." Christine turned red, like that red when someone's about to explode, and started yelling that it was impossible, that I was lying, that I had forged documents. My dad took the phone and started reading the document, and I could see on his face that he was realizing it was real. Christine kept yelling, saying this was a betrayal, that my grandparents had no right to do that the house should be my dad's. And I, as calm as could be, told her, "My grandparents bought this house with their own money, Christine. They could do whatever they wanted with it, and they decided to leave it to me." The next few weeks were total chaos. Christine tried to manipulate my dad into forcing me to go live in a college dorm, like far away, in another state. She said it was for my own good, that I needed independence, and to live the full college experience. But I had started recording conversations on my phone because I didn't trust her at all anymore, and I recorded her telling my dad that they needed to get me out of the house so they could sell it and keep the money. When I showed my dad that recording, something finally clicked in his brain and he took my side, even if only partially. I told Christine and her kids that if they wanted to keep living in my house, they'd have to pay rent $1,200 a month each, because the house had 4 bedrooms and was an expensive property in a good neighborhood. Christine had a total breakdown, screaming, "How dare I?" That I was ungrateful. That after everything she had done for me, this was what she got. And I told her, "Everything you did for me? Christine, you turned me into your servant. You've treated me like garbage since my grandparents died. And now that you discover you can't control me, you act like this." I consulted with a lawyer, paid for the consultation with my savings and my Starbucks tips, and he helped me prepare official eviction documents for Christine, Connor, and Hannah. I gave them 30 days to vacate the house, because that's what the law requires here in Massachusetts. My dad could stay because, well, he's still my dad and he hadn't treated me as badly as Christine. He was just weak and let himself be manipulated. But I made it very clear that Christine and her kids had to leave. Christine didn't take it well, not at all. She started doing things like trying to sabotage my clothes, hiding my stuff, being super passive-aggressive all the time. And then one night, like 2 weeks after I gave them the eviction notice, I installed security cameras in my room and in the living room where I kept my mom's jewelry in a special box my grandparents had given me. That same night, at 2 in the morning, the cameras caught Christine coming into the living room with a flashlight, opening the jewelry box and putting rings, necklaces, and earrings into the pockets of her robe. Jewelry that had belonged to my mom. That was the only physical thing I had left of her besides photos. I went downstairs and turned on the light. Christine almost died of fright. I told her, "Put the jewelry back where it was, Christine. Everything's on camera." She tried to deny it, saying she was just looking, that she wasn't taking anything, but I had already called the police. They arrived like 20 minutes later, and when I showed them the security camera video, they told Christine they could arrest her right there for attempted theft. I filed an official report, and although in the end they didn't arrest her that night because she returned everything, it was registered in the system. The last days before they left were super tense. Christine spent all her time crying and screaming, saying I had destroyed her family, that my dad was going to divorce her because of me, basically playing the total victim. Connor was angry but also scared because for the first time in his life he was going to have to get a real job and support himself. Hannah avoided me completely and spent all her time texting complaining to her friends about how unfair I was. I hired a moving company to pack up all of Christine's, Connor's, and Hannah's stuff on the last day. I wanted to make sure they left without drama and without destroying anything in my house in the process. The final day came. It was like a Tuesday morning, and there was a sheriff's deputy there to supervise the official eviction because my lawyer recommended having police presence in case things got ugly. Christine tried to make a dramatic speech about how I was going to regret this, about how family was more important than houses and money, and I just looked at her and said, "You never treated me like family, Christine. You treated me like your employee, so don't talk to me about family values." They finally left. Christine and my dad went to live at Christine's sister's apartment, a super small one-bedroom space where they're basically sleeping on the living room pull-out couch. My dad is considering divorce, according to what he told me last time we talked, because he finally realized how Christine had treated me all these years and feels guilty for having allowed it. Connor had to get a job at GameStop and now lives with a friend, sharing a small apartment and basically hating his life because he has to work 8 hours a day. Hannah is moving between friends' houses and her aunt's apartment, still in college but much more humble now that she doesn't have her big room and her expensive things. And me, well, I have my house back. My whole house. I hired someone to paint the rooms that Connor and Hannah used. Changed all the furniture in those rooms. Basically erased any trace of them. The room that was Connor's is now my office for studying. Hannah's room I converted into a nice guest room, and honestly the house feels completely different now. Lighter? You know what I mean? Like I had been carrying a huge weight and could finally breathe. Nicole, who was my mom's best friend and who I hadn't seen in years because Christine pushed her away from us, found out about everything that happened through my dad. She contacted me and we've been rebuilding that relationship. She tells me stories about my mom that I didn't know, shows me old photos, and 2 months ago, I offered her the master bedroom, the one that was my grandparents', to move in here and help me pay some house expenses. She accepted and now we live together. And it's amazing to have someone in the house who really appreciates me and treats me with respect. I still work at Starbucks, but now I'm saving real money because I don't have to support 3 adult people who did nothing. I'm taking more online classes and plan to transfer to a brick-and-mortar university next year, but living here, in my house, without having to pay absurd rent in a dorm. My dad comes to visit me sometimes, always alone, and we're working on our relationship. It's hard for him to admit it, but I know he feels terrible for having let Christine treat me like that for so many years. Last week, Christine tried to contact me through a number I didn't have blocked, asking me to reconsider letting them come back, saying that Hannah needed a stable place to study and that Connor was having a really hard time. I responded with a very simple message. No. I blocked the number again. And honestly, I feel good about that decision. I don't feel guilt or anything. These people made my life impossible for years, treated me like garbage in the house that was legally mine all that time, and now that I finally have control of my own life, I'm not going to let it go. Sometimes I sit in the living room, on the same couch where I used to sit with my grandparents watching movies on Sundays, and I think about how they planned all this to protect me. They couldn't prevent Christine from making my life difficult while they were alive, But they left me the tool to get my life back when I needed it most. And that's what I did. I got back my house, my peace, and my dignity. And I'm not going to apologize for that to anyone.